afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Today on Newsfeed at noon, a tragedy that shocked the world. An airplane crash in India kills more than 240 people. Only one passenger survived. Another developing story, Israel launches unprecedented strikes on Iran. The camp of former President Rodrigo Duterte seeks his interim release from the ICC, saying another country is willing to host him. And Lipa confirms her engagement to actor Callum Turner. We begin with the world's worst aviation disaster in a decade. More than 240 people killed after an Air India plane bound for London plunged into a residential area in Ahmedabad. The sole survivor, a British man who was sitting near an emergency exit. Police say he managed to jump out. His cousin says he was traveling with a brother, but they haven't heard from him yet.
Yeah, they were sitting next to each other, but we don't know what happened to his brother. We not heard anything. They absolutely upset things, not just because he's our brother, but other people as well. Yeah. But there's 242 people in the flight.
Yeah.
So obviously it's not good news, is it?
Here's what we know so far about the tragedy. The Boeing 7878 Dreamliner crashed just moments after takeoff. It made a mayday call, but later went dark. This is the first crash for the aircraft, which began flying commercially in 2011. Investigators are still scrambling to find answers. Air India CEO says they are doing everything they can to support investigators and the victims' families. In a video statement, Campbell Wilson conveyed deep sorrow over the tragedy, saying it has been a difficult day at Air India.
We are actively working with the authorities on all emergency response efforts. A special team of caregivers from Air India is on their way to Ahmedabad to provide additional support. The investigations will take time, but anything we can do now, we are doing. For now, our teams are working around the clock to support passengers, crew, and their families, as well as investigators, however we can. Thank you.
Boeing also vowing to help investigators. CEO Kelly Ortberg says he has canceled plans to attend the Paris Air Show next week so they can focus on the probe. GE Aerospace, whose engines were in the Boeing aircraft, also canceled a scheduled Investor Day on June 17. Despite the tragedy, U.S. officials see no immediate reason to ground Boeing 787 flights. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says they have been reviewing information with the American plane manufacturer. He, however, emphasized the U.S. government will not hesitate to implement any safety recommendations that may arise.
At DOT and at the FAA, safety always comes first. And in this investigation, we are going to follow the facts. As the acting administrator will discuss, we're in the process of deploying a team from the FAA, from the NTSB. We also have GE and Boeing that are deploying their resources and investigators to India. I'll just note that India leads the investigation. We're there to provide any assistance that India may need as they go through which appears to be a somewhat lengthy investigation on this crash.
This is very early in the investigation, and so it's not appropriate for speculation at this time on what could have caused the investigation. As the Secretary said, we will let the facts lead us, and we will support the NTSB investigation and, of course, the Indian investigation as well, their version of NTSB.
President Donald Trump also offering assistance. He called the plane crash horrific.
We saw the plane. It looked like it was flying pretty well. It didn't look like there was an explosion. It just looked like the engines maybe lost power. But boy, that is a terrible crash. It's one of the worst in aviation history.
From double engine failure, pilot error to bird strike, aviation experts are giving their 2 cents on what could have possibly caused this air disaster. One analyst says crashes at takeoff are absolutely rare.
When a plane takes off, there are multiple technical elements taking place at the same time. The aircraft is a finely tuned piece of engineering and art, in my point of view. But when it's taking off, the amount of force that's being put into the air and all of the operations of the aircraft need to be working absolutely perfectly. It could be environmental. It could be a situation in terms of winds. It could be ultimately a situation where there might be some visibility issues. So there are many issues that could be at play, and it could be a combination of them, quite honestly. And this is why in these immediate hours, the investigation is vital.
Key to the investigation will be the plane's black box flight recorders. These devices are mandatory on civil flights to preserve clues from cockpit sounds and data. They also help prevent future accidents.
Yeah, they're built to withstand high forces, high impact crashes, intense fires, deep sea pressure, for example. And again, they're usually located at the tail of the aircraft to, increase the survivability. The flight data recorder that includes all the speed, altitude, control input, and the cockpit voice recorder with the cockpit conversation. They provide the investigators with a fairly detailed picture of what happened and how the crew responded, and that would be critical for the understanding of the cause of the accident.
Another developing story, Israel launches a major military operation against Iran, targeting what it calls nuclear facilities and weapons infrastructure. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Operation Rising Lion aims to stop Tehran from developing atomic weapons. Strikes reportedly hit Iran's main uranium enrichment facility, along with missile factories and top military leaders. Iran's leadership convened an emergency security meeting and put its air defenses on high alert. The U.S. distances itself from the attack, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio warning Iran against targeting American interests. Filipinos are being urged to avoid non-essential travel to Iraq as tensions in the Middle East flare. The Philippine Embassy in Baghdad issued an advisory warning of a prevailing security situation. It told Filipinos on the ground to stay vigilant and avoid crowded areas. The U.S. has started evacuating personnel from Iraq amid fears of a wider conflict. An update on former President Rodrigo Duterte's case at the International Criminal Court as his camp petitions for his interim release. They say a third country expressed willingness to host the detained leader. Joash Malimban reports.
3 months before his pre-trial, former President Rodrigo Duterte's camp has filed an urgent request for interim release as he remains in detention at the International Criminal Court facility in The Hague, and that a country is willing to host the 80-year-old former leader. Duterte's legal counsel, Nicholas Kaufman, cited several grounds to justify Duterte's temporary release. First, Duterte is allegedly not a flight risk. Second, his temporary freedom would not affect any legal proceedings. Third, he is not expected to commit any further crimes. And lastly, for humanitarian reasons. Kaufman added that they are already in contact with the member state of the Rome Statute that is willing to host Duterte should the interim release be granted. The name of the country is redacted in the document. But according to ICC-accredited lawyer Joel Butuyan, it's likely that the government of a country near the Netherlands is open to accepting Duterte. At the top of his list, Belgium.
Kung pagbabasehan natin ang mga nakaraan na mga kaso, ang isang country na tumanggap ng isang akusado sa ICC na bigyan ng interim release ay ang bansang Belgium, no? Practically ito dahil ang Belgium ay karatig lang, adjacent lang sa Netherlands, sa The Hague.
In the document filed by Kaufman, it was also stated that the prosecution will not oppose Duterte's interim release. But Butuyan thinks otherwise.
Ang correct phrasing dapat nun ay the prosecutor has set out conditions for it to agree to an interim release, no? So mali yung sinasabi niyang they have already agreed, no? Ang phrasing niyan is ang prosecutor ay mag-a-agree lamang kung ma-meet yung mga kondisyones nila.
Duterte was arrested last March 11 after a political trip to Hong Kong. He was indicted on charges of crimes against humanity over the thousands of alleged extrajudicial killings linked to his brutal war on drugs. Duterte is currently detained at The Hague, awaiting pre-trial hearing scheduled this September. Joash Malimban, Billionario News Channel.
Vice President Sara Duterte quips about holding Senator Amy Marcos as her hostage during a Philippine Independence Day celebration in Malaysia. The VP said their relationship was not rooted in friendship or political alliance, but in what she described as a matter of accountability. She added that she would only release the senator once her father, former President Duterte, returns to Davao City. The statements come amid a very public alliance, with the VP endorsing Senator Amy Marcos during the May midterm elections.
At syempre, inimbita ko si Senator Amy Marcos kung saan man ako pumupunta, dinadala-dala ko siya. Kasi sinasabi ko sa kanya, hindi ako ang magbabalik kay dating Pangulong Duterte sa Pilipinas. Dahil ang kapatid mo ang nagpadala sa kanya sa Hague, ikaw ang magbabalik sa kanya sa Pilipinas. Kaya dala-dala ko yan siya kahit saan. Para siyang naka-hostage. Bibitawan ko lang yan siya kapag si dating Pangulong Duterte ay nabalik na sa Davao City.
Elegance meets politics as diplomats and government officials gather in Malacanang for the traditional Vande Noor. As the country celebrates its 127th year of independence, President Marcos reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to international diplomacy and development partnerships. The full story from Ivy Reyes.
Philippine fashion and diplomacy was the mix at last night's Vande Noor at the palace. Diplomacy and courtesy also was evident when Senate President Cheese Escudero approached House Speaker Martin Romualdez before the ceremonial toasts. The Senate and the lower house traded barbs as Escudero's Senate remanded the highly controversial impeachment complaint back to the Romualdez-led House of Representatives. A few minutes in, Chinese ambassador to the Philippines Wang Silian joined the conversation. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin and Senator Judge Win Gatchalian were also spotted in brief exchange. Meanwhile, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos took the spotlight as she entered the hall in a red Filipiniana terno. Of the over 80 diplomats, 8 ambassadors graced the event in custom Filipino ensemble. Renowned Filipino designer Francis Libiran posted on social media his Filipiniana creations for Australian ambassador to the Philippines Yu and Romanian ambassador Raduta Dana Matache's blue-themed ternos. Singaporean ambassador Constance C and New Zealand ambassador Catherine McIntosh were both in Denis Lustico. For Ukrainian ambassador Yulia Fediv, it had to be a blend of Ukrainian and Filipino colors, donning a blue and yellow Avelba Cudio custom. Slovenian ambassador Miliana Nez went north with Inabel's hand-woven dress, and United Kingdom's Lori Bothes and Swedish ambassador Anna Ferry walked in Michael Leva. With diplomats in the country's national costume, the president jokes.
Gentlemen, you look so well in your barongs, but as ever, the ladies have outshone us as they are resplendent in our national costume, in our terno. The palace is generally a very serious place, and you have brought a bit of charm.
The Papal Noon Show, who usually gives the toast remarks in Vande Noor, was notably absent for the palace's biannual gathering. Ivy Reyes, Billionaire News Channel.
A constitutionalist asserts the Senate's move to remand VP Sara's impeachment case to the lower house is another way to block the trial. As Willard Cheng reports, Attorney Christian Monsod advises senators siding with the vice president to just recuse themselves.
1987 Constitution framer Attorney Christian Monsod believes the Senate's move to remand the articles of impeachment to the House of Representatives was just another delaying tactic. In an interview with BNC's On Point, Monsod thinks the Senate has changed its plan after Senator Bato de la Rosa's motion to dismiss the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte did not materialize.
I think that they changed I think that the Senate changed their game plan. No? They knew that they cannot dismiss. So, ipasa na lang natin to sa 20th Congress.
He does not share the view of other constitutional framers, like Attorney Rene Sarmiento, who said remanding the articles of impeachment is allowed by the Constitution.
He assumes that there is nothing more that the Senate will do in order to prolong the process, so that it will be unfinished by June 30. He's assuming that. I don't want to assume that, because the Senate can just prolong it by all kinds of delaying tactics.
He said only the Supreme Court can address the legal issues pertaining to the impeachment complaint filed against the Vice President.
Whether there has been a violation of the article, yung charges, more yung 1 year limit once a year. That's an issue. That's a constitutional issue that only the Supreme Court can answer.
Monsod does not see any flaw that needs to be addressed in the impeachment rules, as this was already tested in the 3 previous impeachment cases filed before Congress. As to the senators who seem to have shown their partiality for the Vice President, Monsod has this to say.
That's what the justices of the Supreme Court do. That when they feel that they cannot, that there's maybe a conflict of interest, or they don't believe that they can get rid of any bias and all that they voluntarily recuse themselves. It's a matter of integrity and conscience, di ba?
Willard Cheng, Billionario News Channel.
We're taking a break. Up ahead, a Democratic U.S. Senator shoved out of a press conference and was even handcuffed by security. Find out why when Newsfeed at Noon returns. You're back on Newsfeed at Noon. Drama unfolds in the U.S. at a Homeland Security press conference after a Democratic senator was dragged out by security in handcuffs. California Senator Alex Padilla was pulled away after attempting to ask a question as Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem was discussing the LA protests. The senator was accused of engaging in what officials described as disrespectful political theater. Homeland Security added Secret Service agents believed Padilla was an attacker who did not comply with orders to back away. Padilla met with reporters after the incident.
If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. we will hold this administration accountable.
Another drama in U.S. politics as the feud between President Trump and the world's richest man, Elon Musk, simmers down. A day after Musk said he regrets some of the posts he made about Trump, the president praised the billionaire's EV brand Tesla.
And again, you can get any car you want. You can get electric. A lot of people love the electric. They like Tesla. So do I, in all fairness. I like Tesla. And I like others, too.
Trump and Musk got embroiled in a public fallout after the Tesla owner left the White House and called the president's spending bill a disgusting abomination. Trump has said he was a little disappointed about the spat, but there were no hard feelings. Shifting now to sports, ain't no stopping Filipino tennis star Alex Ayala in the grass courts of the Ilkley Open. The top-seeded Ayala cruised past Swiss qualifier Valentina Reiser to reach the quarterfinals of the Great Britain event. The Rafa Nadal Academy graduate was in total control, wrapping up the match in just 68 minutes. Ayala aims to build momentum on grass ahead of her Wimbledon main draw debut in 3 weeks. From the tennis grass courts to the Terraflex, shock and awe from Alas Pilipinas in the AVC Nations Cup in Hanoi, Vietnam. The Philippines showing no mercy against Kazakhstan as it won in straight sets to enter the semifinals. Bella Belen happened, pacing Alas with 16 points, while Alyssa Solomon and Angel Canino combined for 26 markers. The Philippines is currently on top in Pool B with a record of 4 wins and a loss. A New York judge declares a mistrial on a rape charge against Harvey Weinstein after a juror dropped out of deliberations. The decision comes a day after the former movie mogul was convicted on one sex abuse count and acquitted on another. The Manhattan District Attorney asserts they will retry the rape charge.
It's about the survivors. And yes, Harvey Weinstein is going to be held accountable for his conduct as a Ms. Haley, and he's facing a very significant term of imprisonment for that. But the jury was not able to reach a conclusion as to this man, and she deserves that. I mentioned we conferred with her beforehand, so we didn't make that decision unilaterally. But this work, first and foremost, is about the survivors, and that's why we're prepared to go forward.
Weinstein is already serving a 16-year jail sentence following a rape conviction in California. Dua Lipa is officially engaged. The pop star confirmed to British Vogue that she's set to marry actor Callum Turner. This comes after months of rumors sparked by a dazzling ring spotted on her Instagram post in December. While there are no wedding plans yet, Dua says they're enjoying this very exciting time together. She also admits she never really thought about being a bride until now. Dua and Callum were first linked in January 2024. And before we go, it's June 13, Army, and that means one thing. Happy 12th anniversary to our Bangtan boys. To mark the milestone, the K-pop supergroup's management will hold its annual Festa celebration. The main event is in a massive space in Goyang with photo spots set up across the city. Thousands of fans have already been gathering in Seoul this week as 4 BTS members wrapped up their mandatory military service. Only Suga remains enlisted, but he is also due to be released this month. BTS has been on hiatus since 2022. That's why this year's anniversary celebration is extra special for fans who are eagerly anticipating a reunion. And those are the news this hour. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Stay with the Billionaire News channel. Good afternoon and happy weekend.